Hello guys, in this video we'll be looking at the lab program 2 of Dbms laboratory. So it is about the order database. In order database we have three tables, that is salesman, customer and orders. So in the salesman we have the salesman ID as the primary key, and in customer we have the customer ID as the primary key. In orders we have the order number as the primary key. So for creating the table, you have the basic general format, that is create table, table name, and you write the attributes in each of the table. So here create table and table name here is salesman, and the first attribute is salesman ID. So salesman ID, and you write the data type. Data type here is integer. Then should be specified as a primary key. So it is primary key. Then you have name as the next attribute. Then the data type is var character 2 of 50, that is nothing but the number of fields that is given to the var character. Then you have next attribute, that is city, then the data type is var character again. Then you have commission, that is the next attribute, that is also var character 2 of 10. So then you close the create table and you have to terminate with a semicolon. Now for the next table, that is customer table, you have create table customer, that is the table name. Then customer ID is the first attribute of the data type integer. Then you should specify it as the primary key. Then you have customer name, that is var character 2 of 20. Then you have city, that is var character 2 of 20 again. Then you have grade, that is also var character 2 of 20. Then you have salesman ID. The salesman ID will be referencing the first table you have created, that is salesman table. So you have to write it as salesman ID, that is the attribute. That attribute references which table? Salesman table. And which attribute in that table? That is salesman ID itself. So the attribute in this table references the which table it should reference, that is salesman. Then the attribute in that particular table, that is also salesman ID itself. And you have to specify on delete set null. So see, many of this tuples will be referencing the salesman ID. So if suppose you delete the salesman ID for some of the salesmen, then it should reflect to all other tables. That is why you will delete, when it is deleted, you will set everything else that is referencing this salesman ID to be null. So coming to the next table, that is orders. So create table orders, order number, integer, then that is the primary key. Then you have purchase amount as the next attribute having the data type integer. Then you have order date having the data type date itself. Then you have customer ID. So this will be referencing the customer table. So customer ID references customer table, and which attribute in that customer table? It is customer ID. So that will be written in brackets. So customer ID, and you will be specifying what is the delete. If suppose a customer ID is deleted, what should be done? So on delete cascade. So everything relating to that particular foreign key will be deleted. Then you have salesman ID, that is referencing to salesman table, and the attribute there is salesman ID. On delete cascade again. Then you close the create table with semicolon. After this, you will be inserting values. So insert values, the general syntax is insert into table name values, then you keep on inserting. Var character should be specified in quotes, and if it is integer, it is specified as it is. So you can give as many values as you want, but check into the queries so that there will be some specified questions, like suppose the name should have suppose customer Smith. So then you have to be having a value in the customer table that has the name as Smith. So according to the queries, you have to insert the values. So to the salesman table, to the customer table, and the orders table. Now coming to the SQL queries for this particular database. So firstly, count the customers with grades above Bangalore's average. So they're asking the grade. So you need to select will have the attributes you need to display. So select, they've asked the grade, so grade, count of customer ID. Okay, they've asked to count the customers. So count of customer ID will give you the number of customers. So grade and count of customer ID. After that, from which table you will receive grade and customer ID? It is from the customer table. So from will have the table name which has the following attributes that you want to select. After that, you will group by the grade. Since we group by, will group the grades of a particular grade into one set. So group by grade, having grade after group, you have to remember that you'll be specifying having condition. So having grade greater than, and we'll write an inner query again. That inner query will be in brackets. Again you'll be selecting they've asked Bangalore's average, so select average grade. Okay, so this is an inbuilt function, that is average avg of grade from which table? Grade is in customer table. Okay, customer where city equals to Bangalore. Since they've asked Bangalore's average, you have to write the inner query. So it will calculate the average grade of the Bangalore. So once here the grade has been grouped, it will check if the grade is greater than the Bangalore's average, which you have written in the inner query. That will be displayed. So this is the output for the insertion we have done. Then you have the next query, that is find the name and numbers of all the salesmen who had more than one customer. So they've asked name and number of all salesmen. Name and number. So you will select s dot name, s dot salesman id. Here s dot is the alias name. See, suppose the table name is salesman. You can give an alias name as s, and that alias name can be associated with the attributes as s dot. So here they've asked name and salesman ID. So s dot name, that is from the salesman table, it is specifying, and s dot salesman ID, that is also specifies it is from salesman table. So from salesman s, this is the alias name you've given to the attributes that has to be specified here. Next they've asked who had more than one customer. So where condition is one greater than, so they've asked more than one, so it should be one greater than, and the inner query should have the customer count. So how do you do it? Select count star. Count star will count all of the tuples from customer C. This is the alias name again. There is a table customer where, since customer and salesman should be joined, okay, since they are in two separate tables, you have to join the tables by having a common attribute. The common attribute in customer and salesman table is salesman ID. So for that, s dot salesman ID, here you are joining two tables. So s dot salesman ID. So here s is salesman table, s dot salesman ID, that is the attribute of the salesman table, salesman ID, and c dot salesman ID, that is the attribute salesman ID from the customer table. By using this join condition, we'll be joining the two tables, customer and salesman. So that will give you the salesmen who have more than one customer. So according to the values we've inserted, here it is John having the salesman ID 101. So come to the next query, list all salesmen and indicate those who have and don't have customers in their cities. So make sure you have entered a salesman of a particular city in your value while you are inserting value, and in the customer table make sure that particular salesman, suppose the salesman is from Delhi, say Delhi, and in customer table no customer should be there from Delhi, so you'll get at least one tuple as an output. So here firstly you'll use an union operator. Union is either this query or this query, whichever is been true, that will be given as an output. So firstly they've asked the salesman ID, name, customer name and commission. So these are the attributes you'll be selecting and that will be displayed. So s dot salesman ID, that is from salesman table, s dot name again from salesman table, then c dot customer name, that is also from, so that is from customer table, then s dot commission is from salesman table. So from salesman S and customer C, S and C are the alias name that is given. Next we have the joining condition, that is both these salesman and customer have the city to be as a common attribute that can be given as a joining condition. So s dot city is equal to c dot city. Then union, either this thing, or they've asked if they have customer, it will display the customer here in this query. Union, it'll, if there are no customer for that particular salesman, then it will give it as no customer. For that, select s dot salesman ID, s dot name, and for customer name it is no customer. here we are checking for who do not have customer, and s dot commission same. Then here we'll be selecting, since we are not including the customer table, we'll be selecting only the salesman table. So from salesman s, where not city is equal to any select city from customer. So they'll select any city from the customer, and they'll check if that particular city has been there with the salesman. If it is there, then they want it as not city. So if the customer, whatever city has been given from the customer, that should not be there with salesman. So that is about this query, and they're given order by descending order. So here you can check if these salesmen have the customer names as this, and this salesman that is even does not have any customer, so no customer. This is according to the values that are entered. So come to the next query, create a view that finds the salesman who has the customer with the highest order of a day. So you need to create a view. For general syntax for creating view is create view name as. So here create view name here is highest order as select O. Okay, here they're asking you to select the order date, salesman ID, and salesman name. So O dot order date, that is in orders table, the alias name given to is O. So that is why O dot order date is dot salesman ID is dot name. From the tables orders O and salesman S, where you need to join these two tables, and the common attribute in those tables is salesman ID. So that is why s dot salesman ID is equal to o dot salesman ID. Okay, then we have to check the highest order. For checking the highest order of a particular customer, we need to check for the purchase amount attribute. So after that, you'll have a logical operator, and then purchase amount is equal to write an inner query. Inner query is select maximum of purchase amount from orders O. So here we'll be selecting the maximum purchase amount from the order table. So that will give you the salesman ID and salesman name and the order date. Now the delete operation, general syntax is delete from table name, and you'll give the condition by using the where clause. So here they've asked you to remove the salesman with ID 1000. His order must also be deleted. You don't have to take care of this, like all his orders must be deleted, because if given a salesman that is on delete set null, so everything will be deleted. So delete from the table name of salesman, where the condition is salesman ID is equal to 1000. Since they have given salesman ID 1000 should be deleted, so you will be giving in the where clause as 1000. Then in order to view it, select star from salesman, and you can see that the 1000 ID salesman has been deleted. Here also after view, you need to check the view. For that, select star from the view name, that is highest order. Then only you will get the display of the view you've created. So that is all about the second program of Dbms laboratory, and this notes has been uploaded in the description box, and you can access from there. Thank you guys.